And greetings, everybody. Keith here. Hoping everybody's having a good day, enjoying life, living life, loving life. I want to remind everybody, hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And there's a PayPal link down there for anybody that wants to share some love. And, of course, the StreamYard link there for anybody who wants to join the panel. We've got a guest today with us, Dean Chitren. And so we'll be talking to him. And before we get into everything, the title is, Did You Get a Diploma? And we're going to be talking about all kinds of different things today as it relates to this electronic digital monetary fiat system and how people are enslaved in it through various different terms of indoctrination and stuff. But before we do, I'm going to go over the term diploma so we get a comprehension of what diploma really means, because when you walk out of high school and you're supposed to be prepared for the adult life and all of the things that come with it, such as this monetary fiat system, you're not really prepared for it as much as you might think. And this is the fallacy of the parents that go through the same process of going through school, thinking they've got everything they need for an adult life. And somehow they make it through their adult life, have children, and present the same situation. And it's not good for us. We need a better motivation to be better people, in my opinion. So let's take a look at it. Doctor definition. A lot of people look at me funny when I tell them that my companion is actually a doctor. She taught at the local public education school, special education center, and she's a doctor. Why do we call these kind of people doctors? They're not necessarily going in and performing surgery, but even a mechanic can be a doctor. So let's see what doctor means. Because when you start doing your research above and beyond that high school education, you'll find out there's more to this stuff than they ever will teach you. And it says, noun, a qualified practitioner of medicine, a physician. This is a modern colloquial term that we've gotten used to, but it is not, in fact, what the actual definition is in its origins, and therefore its intent. They've changed it over time, and it no longer receives the same intended use as it was when it was first created. So let's take a look. A person who holds a doctorate. So again, you can go to college for mechanics and get a doctorate and be a doctor down at the local car shop, okay? Verb. As a verb, it says change the content or appearance of a document or picture in order to deceive or falsify. Next one, it says treat someone medically. I will doctor him and every day until he is better. Similar, let's see, down here it says remove the sexual organs of an animal so it cannot reproduce. That's to doctor something. Repair a machine. That's to doctor something. Like I said, when you take your car down to the car shop and somebody repairs it, he doctored it. Therefore, he's the doctor. Okay? Let's take a look at etymology from the King James Version of the Bible. Okay? A lot of people, and this is going to be from the 1828 Webster's Dictionary. Doctor, to teach. A teacher. There stood up one in the council, a Pharisee named Gamaliel, a doctor of the law. So think about that, a doctor of the law. Did he doctor the law? Is the word doctor changed over time? Did they doctor the term doctor? One who passed all the degrees of a faculty, all the degrees of a faculty. This is what we're talking about when we talk about diploma. Do you have all the faculties to go out amongst the world now and take care of all of your affairs? Oftentimes not. So, and welcome, Dean. What do you think?
Good morning. Yeah. So how does that tie into diplomat or diplomatic immunity as regards to the United States corporation versus traveling as a free man?
Okay, so if you are accredited by the United States, is that a standing that would be negated if some officer, some policy officer alongside the road came along and doctored some information? Aren't you already accredited once you get a diploma? Isn't that an accreditation that
Yes,
you know what you're speaking about?
Yes, you're correct.
So your yay should be your yay and your nay should be your nay, but that's not what we're taught. And first thing that happens when a police officer pulls us over, we start babbling and stumbling. And no, we're the ones that are accredited. And if we understand that capacity correctly, we should go forth boldly, but not as we see today, people walking out of high school and not picking up another book.
So are we accredited due to the fact of the registered organization birth certificate? Is that the foundation, the starting point?
No, you're accredited because of the information that they supposedly taught you. Everything in this world, the only way you benefit is by having the knowledge of it. That's the true benefit. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. So the true benefit being the knowledge. When you walk out of high school, do you really have enough knowledge, or should you continue learning?
Continue learning.
Absolutely. And so the problem is that we have a system that teaches us that you need a high school diploma so you can get a job, and that the job is the most important thing. Remember the book of Job? He did all of that work all of his life, but he ended up with nothing. That was the whole purpose. It doesn't matter what you get. What matters is what you know, and who your teacher is, who your doctor is, who your physician is. Is it Satan or God?
God for sure.
So that's the true escape from the system, is before you get indoctrinated into it, because that's where people go wrong. As soon as they walk off that platform with that diploma, and in most cases, they've already got an ID or a driver's license where they've already taken the Social Security card and the birth certificate down to the DOT, Department of Transportation, Department of Motor Vehicles, and had a motor vehicle assignment. And that's an assignment wherein you have pledged property in imperfect usufruct. This is what I told you we'd be talking about, is imperfect usufruct, where somebody pledged property to the state for state ownership.
So who's the somebody that pledged that property to the state? The hospital or the mother?
That is, I'm talking about a driver's license, motor vehicle.
Okay.
That stuff, that's not actually, in the way I'm going to put it, that's not an actual pledge. It's not a valid pledge. That's called a hypothecation of a customer's security. And if they don't know that they're the customer and that that's their security and somebody else pledged it for them, then it wasn't valid. It's void ab initio. But when it comes to the driver's license and stuff, that motor vehicle assignment is to do things on state business or perform the functions of public office. In that, every state, when you sign up for that driver's license, they sign you up on the voter registration roll. They make an election for you. That driver's license application is a security. It is hypothecated, and they pledge your vote. You are now election of a voter just by the driver's license.
Gotcha.
This is the problem. This is where you have become supposedly somebody of the capacity to manage the transfers in all of these securities when that's supposed to be a regulated department.
So if we look at, from my knowledge, there might be three trusts, right? There's the God trust, right? God created. And then there's if we look at the Americas, the 1789 trust. And then we look at the United States Corporation Trust. Do you believe that there is a way that you can exit those trusts and claim your own God trust and be the beneficiary and trustee of Earth? And if we go back to how this country was, started, and look at the original Republic Trust versus the United States Corporate Trust of whatever 1871 or whatever date you want to use, how do you? I didn't choose to be born into that 1871 United States Inc. Trust by birth certificate. How would someone exit that system and claim their estate and go completely private and be able to travel and be able to get returned their estate property from the United States Incorporated?
It can be done, I'm sure. Many people have done it before. There's one guy I know that he actually travels around the world, and he doesn't have a passport. And it's not just him, it's his family. But they spend half hour to 2 hours being questioned. And every time they stand on the same word. We're children of God. There's nothing you can do about it. We use Psalms 121:8, whatever. So you can exit the system, but you have to be very strong in your word. And even if you don't exit the system and you want to play in it, you still have to be very strong in your word. And that's one of the things that I recommend, is that you learn the word so you can determine how you want to play with it. You don't have to get rid of it. The thing is that the United States has certain bounds and everything set up, but through the statutes and codes and rules and everything, things have been kind of obfuscated and ambiguated. And so people really in the offices that they're supposed to be fulfilling, as public officials, they really don't understand what's going on. They're just doing their job. And I tell people this all the time. Most people, to me, seem in modern times here on American soil to be Hitler's willing executioners, because they are just doing their job. They're not going above and beyond. They have no compassion. They have no truth. They have no righteousness to seek truth. They're just doing their job because they got a paycheck they got to make, and they got a family they got to raise. They don't give a rat's ass about nothing else. And we have to understand that the unity of this supposedly great nation is only held up in unity by a strong people. And that's why I say people walking out of high school and not picking up another book shows that we've got a very weak country. If you want a strong country, learn its system. It works good. It's not an evil system. There are people in it that just don't know what the fuck they're doing. It causes corruption and problems. And rather than people standing up to their faults and issues, they want to sit back and say, no, I'm just doing my job, which again is the equivalent of, to me, being a fraud and a liar. Because you have certain competencies that you have in these public offices. And if you can't uphold those competencies, I don't care if you got a paycheck to make. I don't care if you got 7 kids that need to suck on a tit until they can be an adult. That's your problem. You shouldn't be bringing those kids in without knowing what to do. And that's where we're at. Everybody thinks that they can send their kids to school, and then when they graduate, they'll be okay. No. That's disconnecting from the family spiritual tie that we're supposed to be using as the teacher and teaching about the teacher. Go ahead.
So if we're still in trading with the Enemy Act, and we're all considered, alien property, is it El Perro, the living man, alien property? Is it or your all cap Social Security card name, the foreigner to the United States, Inc.?
When it comes to El Perro, that's my pen name. That's like Samuel Clemens, Mark Twain, and Tom Sawyer. It's a second person. And so they know they're working with the second person, and they know they're not the first person. So that means there's two people talking about a second person. Who is the other person that's talking about that second person? Is he the first person?
So let me try and get some clarity then. So under the alien property, if we're all foreign to the United States, who is the prisoner? Is it the birth certificate or the social security name?
Well, it's the documentation. See, an individual's name and number identify the record.
Okay.
It never identifies you. When you pull that license out of your pocket and you hand it to that nice policy officer and he wants to identify you and he asks you for your driver's license to do so, that's false. He is identifying a record.
Correct.
Okay? And he is using that as a semblance with a picture on it and attaching it to you to verify that you are supposed to hold that record. You're not a record holder. You're not supposed to hold that record. The holder of the record is a liable party.
So in your circle of influence, and people have, talked about surrendering that record or that registered organization back to the United States, I guess, is that the way that you've seen people get out of the system as well?
Yeah, you can register it. See, the minimum birth registration standards, according to 5 U.S.C. 301, say that the birth is supposed to be registered in the United States. But the problem is there's no birth registry in the United States.
Right.
That's in the bus or in the state. And the state's birth certificate you can have issued for various different reasons. One of which where you can use it as a document of title, an evidence of title, and use it as a transfer of title. You can use it as a transfer of value. It's good for various different things because it's a legal instrumentality, and it's got seals and signatures on it. So again, there's different ways that you can do this stuff. And yeah, you can get a Treasury direct account and you can be the controller of that. But I'm telling you, I wouldn't do that unless you have at least a Series 7 broker's license. You're not supposed to be doing that stuff without it. This is being organized under the laws of the United States. Now that diploma, as you graduate from high school and walk out the door, you are already accredited under the United States. But that diploma shows that you've been accredited according to a public education system for that specific purpose of becoming a public officer of some sort.
Yeah, I had a Series 7 a couple of decades ago. So what you're saying, that even if you surrender the certificate of live birth and give the reversion back to the United States, you need a Series 7 to do that?
No.
Okay.
If you're going to be using the Treasury direct account.
No, I have no desire.
If you're going to be doing that, you would need a Series 7 broker's license because you're going to actually be handling physical certificates that may or may not be yours that you can or may gift to others.
No, the only reason I posted that the other day is I was looking at, if we're considered minors and the Federal Reserve is a custodian until we claim majority, I was just thinking, how would I just put them on notice that I'm no longer a minor and transfer those accounts into my control, which then I could give to securities intermediary, Fidelity or Schwab, and have them manage the account for me.
Well, I think a lot of people are misconstruing the thing about minor and age of majority. When we're thinking about the minor, you're not the minor. It's a minor account. And that minor account cannot stand alone. Even at age of majority, that account can't stand alone because it's got to have two witnesses. This is the thing about standalone banks. They're not going to allow it. This is why I laugh at people that say they're private bankers and they do their own. No, you're not. If you think you are, you're probably going to get caught up in fraud here pretty soon, because you cannot operate as a standalone bank in the world. Nowhere.
Okay, so if
that I know of.
if the Fed controls the majority now and the minor, how would you take your minor, and who would you consider being the next major to?
Well, it's the age of majority, where you now have a major interest in it, because you are now of adult, and your yay is your yay, and that interest is now held by you and not by like a guardian or custodian.
Gotcha.
That's an automatic transfer of rights, titles, and interests upon that age of majority. And that's why I say, if you're going to come walking out of the high school and don't know this stuff, then maybe somebody didn't teach you properly, and maybe it should go back to the home. And mom and dad needs to start learning this stuff, because it's imperative, and start teaching it to their children. Gotcha. I mean, how do you expect people to, a nation's people, a whole body of people, to be able to live in peace and comfort and the modern conveniences of technology, if they're blatantly stupid?
So other than the family that travels and spends time talking to the man for 30 minutes to 2 hours, do you have any firsthand knowledge or any hearsay knowledge of friends that have gotten out or getting out or have been able to claim their estate? And the second question is, since we have peace treaties, could they get a special type of passport credential that would?
Well, that's what the accreditation is all about. If you are, again, if the United States created a United States person, isn't it their responsibility to protect that United States person?
That piece of paper, that record.
Yeah. It's their responsibility. They created it. Okay? So if they're going to use it, and again, this is the imperfect use of fraud, if they're going to use it in their system by allowing somebody else to use it, then they're also liable for the person they gave it to use. This is the Trading with the Enemy Act. You don't go selling tanks to people that are going to use them against you. You make sure they're your ally. You're already an ally, aren't you?
Absolutely.
Weren't you actually born on this soil? That's what needs to be corrected. That's it. My yay is my yay, my nay is my nay. You accredited me, but before you accredited me, the people that came before me accredited you. 10th Amendment. There is no power delegated to the state or the United States without the people. They don't just magically get their powers. So they have to admit that they were accredited by the people, and therefore equal consideration in this contract, this social compact. And the only problem I see with that is that, again, nobody walks out of school by themselves having all of the mental faculties that would be required to run a nation. In other words, they don't have their plenipotentiary powers. Nobody walks out of school having talents across the board. They don't even study all the talents. So how can they have them? This is, again, the thing that I talk about when people walk out of the high school and don't pick up another book. I urge you to pick up books, folks. I urge you to pick up books. Not only that, and I'm going to show you.
You hit the mute button. You hit the mute button, Keith.
Okay, my apologies. I got my own little tiny library here with a bunch of books, and there's some powerful books. There's language, how language works, how children speak. Of course, there's the Holy Bible there, one version. The Ad Man for people with sales and stuff, that's going to talk to you about all about convincing people of sales. There's Socratic logic. There's the power versus force. Here's the three Negro classics. Power of Now. We've got corporations and business associations. 900 and some pages. I've got one thing marked in there that goes to the liabilities, pre-incorporation liabilities. And that's what we're talking about. Like I said before, the nation that people are supposed to be organized under the laws of the United States. So there's a pre-incorporation liability of people that walk out of high school, get that ID or the driver's license, and they're acting in the performance of the functions of public office without comprehending it or realizing it. And that's why the officers and stuff are pulling you over.
So then,
with the Enemy Act.
If you don't mind, can we just talk about the foundation, mean this certificate of live birth, the register in the beginning, and how would someone that has a desire to exit that system in peace and harmony and claim the fruits and interests from that since inception, and then get the diplomatic credentials to be able to travel freely without harm and safety?
Okay. That birth certificate is evidence of an estate. It is not your estate. It is mom's estate.
Okay, and how do we find the research on that for the people that are listening?
The definitions, the language.
Okay.
It is a decedent estate. It is the estate of a decedent. So, if mom's still alive, she's not deceased. Therefore, there is no real decedent.
Okay.
Okay.
So, for instance, my mom passed 5 years ago, so there is an estate.
Right. So there's a decedent for that estate.
So on the certificate, she was the informant, and I was listed as the child. Is that how we know it's an estate?
No.
So that's what I'm trying to comprehend myself and anyone listening. How would I know it's an estate?
Okay. What is an estate? An estate is all real and personal effects. That is an estate. All real and personal effects. In other words, you could restate that and say it is all tangible and intangible effects. In other words, everything I've affected in my life, good or bad, is part of my estate. All 93 cases down here at the courthouse is information with names and numbers that identify a record. That record, since it's got my name and that number, or a name similar to mine that has been used against me all my life, I have an interest in that. That is my estate.
Would you mind, you started the show by doing the definition of doctor and diploma. Could you do the same thing with estate for a brief?
Okay.
This is very helpful to everybody listening. And then maybe after that, cover the S.W.A.P and the S.W.A.P.
The S.W.A.P is the documentation. The S.W.A.P is the living man,
okay,
of which the documentation is made. So let me pull my screen share up.
So that means the S.W.A.P would be the birth certificate estate.
Correct. And
Okay.
you are the S.W.A.P. And that's the attachment, is that name and enumeration. You have the same name, and you can make a claim to it because your mom was the informant. Okay. Okay, here we have estate, an extensive area of land in the country, usually with a large house, owned by one person, family, or organization.
Okay. Full stop. So right there. So who is the owner there? Is that the mother or the state of Michigan, if it was Michigan?
This is an extensive area of land. Now, when it comes to an estate in this sense, that's the estate you're talking about with the heavenly estate. They cannot sell the land. Okay, this is Leviticus 25, verse 23. The land shall not be sold forever, for it is mine, and ye are strangers and sojourners with me. So when you recognize who you are and who your doctor is, that's your estate. That's your true estate.
The living man.
Right.
Okay.
And then it goes on, a housing or commercial development, a property where coffee, rubber, grapes, or other crops are cultivated. All the money and property owned by a particular person, especially at death. Okay?
So tie that into the certificate of live birth, that number 2.
So at death, the birth certificate is evidence that there was a birth.
Okay.
At death, a death certificate is created so that they can now transfer the body just like they transferred all the property during the life. The birth certificate is transfer of property during life. Death certificate is transfer of property after death. It goes on to say a class or order regarded as forming a part of body politic. So this is the estate we're talking about when we talk about the birth certificate. Okay? It's a body politic estate. And when you know yourself and you don't vote for a false patriarch and you parlay instead for Jesus, he then fights all of your wars. You guys pay attention to the Pirates of the Caribbean and what a parlay is? Archaic, the literary sense, a particular state, period, or condition in life. State, condition, situation, position, circumstance, lot, fate. This is the estate. Your life is the estate. All real and personal effects. All tangible and intangible effects.
Okay, and so while the mother's alive, you're in heirship, but when she passes, now you can claim the estate by the death certificate?
Yes. Well, by the death alone. It's inherent. It's inherent.
So if it's inherent, who would you notify or how would you notify anybody?
The probate court. Estate from King James Version. Estate in L. Status from stow. To stand. See, this is your standing. You have to know thyself and stand on the land knowing it's real, and the body politic is the fictional record that you're not supposed to be part of. Unless you are, in fact, performing the functions of public office. The roots, STB, STD, and STG, have nearly the same significance to set, to fix. Is that close to as set? Isn't your estate the as set? Isn't it already as set? That's why they make a record. The system is working for you, folks. You're fighting against it. I was doing the same thing.
So what did you do differently to not fight against it and use your estate and claim it and do that type of thing?
I just know myself, and anytime I see something that's not correct, I correct it. That's it. I filed no documents. They posed a failure to appear for jury duty. I just walked into court with the documentation and said, hey, man, there was some mistakes here. They said, oh, okay. Well, let me send you another summons. I said, as long as you send it to this address and it comes with a waiver of personal jurisdiction. Okay. And they didn't send it to that address as I wrote, using a formatted address, in other words, an international address. They used the 3-line national address that they strictly adhere to, and they did not send a waiver of personal jurisdiction. So then I went back in and had it dismissed, but then they sent me a nice little document. Said, we dismissed the charges, but all costs are taxed to the defendant. Now, first of all, I made it very clear that I am not the defendant, that the defendant is the record that they hold, and that, sorry, I'm not subject to those jurisdictions, taxing or not taxing. So by sending that to me again, they're not sending it to the right party. I am not the party in receivership. I am the party known as end user, the benefactor that gives to the beneficiary that they are holding. See, folks, the beneficiary is the record. The beneficiary is the record, is the data elements in the record. The trustee is the data elements in the record. The grantee is the data elements in the record. The grantor, the trustor, the benefactor are all the living beings that those representations are created from.
That's fantastic. So based on the body politic estate or the fictional record that you have, and is it your assumption that there is interest and value that's accrued in the last 50 years for your account? And if so,
absolutely.
Have you made claim to any of those, or do you have intention to? And if you do or did, how do you plan on doing it?
Yes, I do eventually plan on it. And I'm currently in the process of trying to get certain things set up for my companion, because we're going through stages of dementia that she can no longer handle things. So we're working on that on our end privately, as far as getting up a state account set up so that we can do that. And what we're talking about, that 50 years or so of things that have been established from our activities, you go through and you think about your paychecks. You've paid taxes, and they paid you with certain instrumentalities that are supposed to be used in the public venues by public officials. And what we have here today is a system that negates the ability of the common man to have his own form of money. Not that it's false and that we can't do that. We can. As private member associations, we can start creating our own coins and use our own notes, our own pieces of paper back and forth, and leave that third party out. We can do that. People just aren't used to it. They don't want to do it. It seems like too much work. But in reality, this system is for people to get involved in it. That's why I say if you want to, you can. That's what it's designed for. And it's actually designed pretty good. But the problem is people don't know how to discern their own value. So when we look to the record, there are certain things that are going to have value, and those are tax credits and insurance credits and employment credits. Those are the things that are recorded every quarter when you report, or your employer reports, or every year annually when you report. Those are all things that are recorded. And you can go in and say, hey, listen, come to find out, here's a mistake, and I wasn't qualified to do this, you weren't qualified to do this, it's mutual mistakes. And the record does need to have integrity, and therefore we need to work together to correct this and make all parties whole. And those credits will be there. And all you have to do is have your trust set up with another private banker so that they can transfer those credits.
So if the Social Security person is the taxpayer, is the signer of those credits, wouldn't all that interest earned every time you signed your name or used that taxpayer name number, wouldn't there be interest accrued over 50 years as well?
Absolutely. Everything that is a security instrument that's been securitized through your signature, you have an interest in. A student loan, any kind of bank loans or mortgage documents, anything that you sign that has to do with public instrumentalities, hospital receipt or a hotel receipt. Look at your let me pull this up. This is directly from the local hospital, guys. I went down to the hospital when I found out, or when I had some problems with my shoulder and I was having difficulties and needed to check them out. So I went down there and I went to the emergency room. And I'll bring you right back up, Dean, but I'm going to go full screen and cut my background here.
10-4.
And what we've got is I went to the local emergency room for my pain, and they gave me a sales agreement. Okay? So we look on the sales agreement on the back. And on the back, under the sales agreement part, it says sales agreement. Now read along with me. It says, the customer agrees to pay the stated price for the equipment, it being understood that credit will be given to what?
The customer's account.
They're supposed to give you credit for your payments. Why is that? Because it's a third-party situation. The first two persons are the fictional persons in the paperwork.
And they're acting as the intermediary. Yeah.
You're acting as the intermediary.
Gotcha. So after you get the things taken care of on the personal side with your partner, are you going to be doing something similar to what, say, Eric John Phelps did by the name change decree and going to the probate and making the claim that way? Or are you going to do something maybe where, I don't know if some dude has done it, the law of Boris, where he's surrendered everything under the Trading with the Enemy Act? Which method or process or combination, what's the quickest way for you to make claim to your estate, get the interest in that's due to your property and estate, and make claim to that?
Well, first, we're going to take a look at 12 U.S.C. 411.
Demand for lawful money.
Correct. And then we're going to take a look at 31 U.S.C. 5118. And then we're going to take a look at 50 U.S.C. 4305 B2.
Yeah, assignment, conveyance, and transfer to the United States.
Correct. Then we're going to take a look at transfer of titles. So let's take a look at 12 U.S.C. 411 first. Let me pull that up.
Okay.
And this one's very simple, guys. It says, Federal Reserve notes to be issued at the discretion of the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System for the purpose of making advances to Federal Reserve banks through the Federal Reserve agents as hereinafter set forth, and for no other purpose are authorized. If you're not a Federal Reserve agent, according to this language, you ain't supposed to be touching those Federal Reserve notes.
So then the question is, are we considered agents? Yes or no?
By presumption, the identification, yes.
Okay.
But the said notes shall be obligations of the United States and shall be receivable by all national and member banks and Federal Reserve banks, and for all taxes, customs, and other public dues. That says public dues. Nowhere will they talk about your private dues, because you ain't got none. Okay?
So what it's saying there is you can take any bill, whatever you have, and you can demand lawful money at the Department of Treasury,
Correct.
meaning gold and silver.
Correct. Well, no,
Do you know?
no. Lawful money today is not gold and silver. Lawful
Okay.
money today is $1 bills, $1 stamps, $1 money orders, money orders, bills, stamps, and Federal Reserve notes.
Okay, so you could take all of that stuff and deliver it to them and make a demand for lawful money, and they're supposed to credit that into your account.
There you go. There's the term we're looking for. Credit to the account. 1218 or 12 U.S.C. 1813. We'll look at this real quick just for everybody's edification when it comes to those deposits. Did I just pass it already?
You can do control.
There we go.
Okay.
Deposit. The term deposit means the unpaid balance of money.
Unpaid balance of money.
So if you make a deposit, there's an unpaid balance of money of what? Or its equivalent received or held by a bank or savings association in the usual course of business and for which it has given or is obligated to give credit. Weren't you already giving credit upon that deposit of a diploma in the high school? What kind of credit was that? See, we talk about species of money. Does anybody talk about species of credit? Okay. So let's go back to the Federal Reserve, 12 U.S.C. 411. And then I told you we would talk about what? 31 U.S.C. 5118, gold clauses and consent to sue. We're going to go down here. Where is it? Except when consent is not withdrawn under this subsection, an amount appropriated for payment of public debt obligations and for United States coins and currency may be expended only dollar for dollar.
So explain that in layman's terms.
Well, the fair market value of that car out there that has to be 38 years old and I got from Grandpa is a little different than the way I value it. So if you're going to give me dollar for dollar, you're going to give me dollar for dollar over the value I say. This is like saying that coffee or my coffee is better than your coffee. And though you charge 50 cents a coffee bean for your coffee, I charge $1 for each bean for my coffee. You have the right to set your own value. That's all it's saying.
Okay.
Now the next one I told you about was 50 U.S.C. 4305 B2. This is in regards to the Trading with the Enemy Act, that ID, and the fact that you're not in fact an enemy, but they will treat you like an enemy until you come forth and prove otherwise, and that is to show on its face that there's already some kind of amnesty. There's already some kind of peace treaty. There's already some kind of alliance. That alliance was, I was born on this ground. I was born on this land. So how could I possibly be an enemy? If I was an enemy, I would have grown up and known to be an enemy. I would have moved out and attacked from exteriorly. I wouldn't stay here and keep clowning around with 93 cases.
Are they presuming you an enemy of the United States, Inc. or the United States of America?
I don't know. It's just a matter of the way it works. It's a program of economic warfare that has been moved beyond the field of war during times of peace on domestic soil. It's the identification. You go forth from high school, you get accredited, but you turn around and get an ID, discrediting what you were already accredited for. So anyway, 50 U.S.C. 4305, and we're going to go down to B2. And this is why the alliance is so important. The amnesty, the peace treaty, the recognition that I was born on this soil. I wasn't here as an enemy at any time. And it says any payment, conveyance, transfer. Everybody got this? Everybody seeing what I'm showing? Okay.
Yes.
Got to double check. Any payment, conveyance, transfer, assignment, or delivery of property or interest therein made to or for the account of the United States, or has otherwise directed, or as otherwise directed. So you get to give a directive. Okay, you get to give the directive. Pursuant to this subdivision or any rule, regulation, instruction, or direction issued hereunder. So all you got to do is follow the law. Shall, to the extent thereof, be a full acquittance and discharge for all purposes of the obligation of the person making the same, that's yourself, and no person shall be held liable in any court for or in respect to anything done or omitted in good faith.
So if you take your mortgage note, stay on that so I can see that, read the entire portion there, please. So if you take your mortgage note and you assign and transfer it by endorsing the back to the United States Treasury, United States, and then you do the directive of 12 U.S.C. 411, and you demand your exchange of lawful money to said account that you have in a private trust.
Yep.
Okay. Now, what's the likelihood of you sending that to the alien property custodian that they actually do it?
Absolutely. If it's pursuant to law, if they don't, then they're the enemy, right?
And the reason I ask is last week I just took one document, a statement and a coupon, and I just exactly for 50 U.S.C. 4305 B2. I actually just said, for me, payable to the United States Treasury, endorsed it without recourse, and mail it to the alien property custodian to see if they actually handle it. I gave him a cover letter and a directive what to do.
Cool. Let me know how it turns out. Because like I said, there's different ways of doing things. You can do it with a 1099B, a 1099 miscellaneous. People use 1099As and Cs and all this kind of stuff. And again, as long as you have a good comprehension, you can put the documentation forward without even using their documentation. You can write up your own statements.
Yeah, because it doesn't say any of those codes you just said to use a 1099A, OID, B, C, D.
Yeah, it doesn't. There's no real instructions. And this is why I say there's many ways of doing things. Many people can do the UC1s, the UCC1s, and be just fine with it. There are other people that do it and they fuck things up because there's not a true understanding under the estate and the trust what those are. Your estate is your whole life. Your trust is the documentation that you hold your property in to prove that it's yours. It's the evidence that that property is yours.
So you mentioned the 1099s. I got a quick question. If you look at a 1099 OID, I've heard or read somewhere where if you put the taxpayer's name as the payer, and you put, let's just say, the estate, Dean Richard Chitren estate, with its EIN as the recipient, are you transferring from the taxpayer's credit account? You said there's credits in there. Are you transferring credit from there to the recipient that he may be able to use properly if you file the correct return?
Absolutely. That's all we're doing. It's a usufruct. It's an imperfect usufruct where the state owns property and they allow you to use it. Now, in the use of that property, you can acquire your own property, but you also don't need to use state property, the identification, to do so either. You can use your own private credentials. This is why I talk about the diploma and the accreditation. If you're already accredited, then you already have private credentials, but then you go to a public venue and get public credentials, which is public identification, and that kind of nullifies that private credential. It doesn't actually nullify it, but because you think you have to have that public ID, you leave that private credential behind. And I'll explain this like driver's license is not a 24-hour license. Ask any trucker. They limit the time you can be on the road for work. So the driver's license, when they pull you over along the road, are you actually on the job, or are you in your private capacity just running to the store to get some groceries? Because if you're not on the job, they're not supposed to be pulling you over, or that when they do pull you over and they find out you're not working, you're not in a commercial capacity, oh, I'm sorry, have a good day. Make sure you keep that speed down though, ma'am.
Yeah, because they want to protect the other property of the state.
Exactly.
So going back to that 1099, I've seen people where they'll do a 1096 cover letter for the amount that's on the 1099 OID, and they'll take the taxpayer's payor and they'll put the recipient. Let's say they wanted to get a $600,000 home, and they were going to transfer credit from the taxpayer to the recipient's estate EIN. They would do the 1041V voucher, and I guess they would endorse the back as the credit and do the 1041 for the return. Is that a mistake of belief?
It sounds right, but again, it depends upon other people's interpretations and who you're dealing with. And like I said, even though it might be a viable process, a lot of people might run into problems because the people on the other side of the counter, it's new to them. They've not seen people doing some of this stuff. So it's becoming a hassle for them. And that's the one I was talking about earlier. I'm just doing my job, sir. I don't know what the hell you're talking about. You have to talk to my supervisor.
Gotcha. And what about when people send out, based on the IRS codes, the non-decedent letter that talks about the infant? Are you familiar with that?
Come on. Let me see here. Infant is a decedent from IRS manual
21.7.13.3.2.2. Yeah.
An infant is the decedent of an estate or grantor, owner or truster of a guardianship, receivership, or custodianship that has yet
to receive a
SSN. So if you received an SSN, is there a decedent then?
If you receive one, there's a decedent. If you haven't received one, which one is it?
It says receivership or custodianship that has yet to receive an SSN. So once you receive an SSN, it shows there's no longer a decedent. The decedent then doesn't pop up again until mom passes on. Now you have a decedent again.
So does the decedent make the claim, or does the non-decedent make the claim?
The living soul makes the claim, but he's got to make it upon a decedent estate. You can't make a claim upon your mom's estate if she's still alive.
Okay, cool. That's very helpful. And so this
is why I say the courts can't even make that claim. If I can't make a claim to my own estate because mom is still alive, then why are the police adjudicating over me?
Is it because of debtor creditor or trustee?
It's because of some kind of confusion that they haven't learned the word of God. Because I don't give one rat's ass about what their commercial and legal entity system says. When it comes to me, my yay is my yay, my nay is my nay. I don't care who the fuck says that.
So if mom's passed away, how would I go and claim her estate? Do I do it through IRS Treasury? Do I do it through alien property custodian?
Probate court. Your local county probate court. Hey, my mom passed away. I need to gather up the estate matters and make sure they're all consolidated so we can execute and administer and distribute the property according to her will.
Awesome. Thank you. I'll have to do some research on that and reach out to you later in the beginning of the year.
All right. And let's see here. We got, I got to make a quick shout out to folks in chat. We got Can-Am 4, Josh Junio. We got David Lee Williams, El Bruno. Greetings, everybody. John Harnick here, Flow State. If you're still here, thanks for stopping in, brother. El Bruno, Rodney Kitley, Disciple of Messiah, Caucasian Sasquatch, Big Stank, Based Oracle, low 70s, golf peak performance and scoring mastery. That's
me,
one.
Baby. That's me.
Oh, is that you?
Yeah.
I like that. Norm Longstaff was here. Greetings, everybody. Make
Hey,
sure you
Norm.
hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And let's go on. What do you got, Dean?
I was just saying hi to Norm. He's pretty. He's a great researcher.
Yeah. He hangs out here with me a lot on the my streams. He doesn't come up on panel, but I certainly wish he would. But he's kind of shy, I guess.
Yeah, he should not be shy. He's got a wealth of knowledge.
Absolutely, he understands his stuff pretty well as well.
So, what are your intentions and goals for 2025? Are you looking to collapse that estate trust, make claim to it, or are you just looking to be quasi in and out? What's your intention, and what would you share to people if they had an intention to get out?
Well, it goes to transfer title. Here we have 49 CFR. Let me make sure I've got it up here. Oops. 49 CFR 24.106, and it says expenses incidental to transfer of title to the agency. And what it is you had a couple documents that you presented to the Department of Transportation, D.U.M.B, at the state level to get a driver's license or an ID. And that is evidence of a title. Okay, look at your ID. Look at your driver's license. I'm pretty sure it's going to be last name first and then the first and last name, but it's all going to be all caps.
Yep.
Okay, that's a document of title. Okay.
So the driver's license is the document of title.
Correct. It's entitled. It's an entitlement. Okay. You're entitled to now drive on the roads, right? It's an entitlement. And so what we're going to do is expenses incidental to transfer of title to the agency. See, we went upon age of majority and got that diploma and went out and got a driver's license or ID, and then started presenting that ID to everybody on the applications and stuff, right? So that document of title created everything at the state level. We use it for everything. Go open a bank account, get a job, everything. So what we're talking about here is all of those documentations that we expressed using that ID or the driver's license. Even if you went to the hospital and got an emergency room sales agreement and presented that ID, that document is a extension of that evidence of title. Okay. So expenses incidental to transfer of title to the agency. So what you're going to do is everything you use that driver's license to express, or in an expression, to fill out an application or whatever, you want all that documentation sent back. Back where? To the Social Security Administration, Health and Human Services. Health and Human Services is the one that establishes the estate recovery program. So they're going to be responsible for gathering up all of the documents of title in the state that you filled out through your lifetime. And they have records of them. You have to tell them doctors, teachers, employment, banks, all of it, insurance. You're gonna have to be as concise as you can, everything you've done business with throughout your lifetime to help them, so you can gather everything up. Once that's gathered up, there's another level. It keeps going up the chain. Go ahead.
Let's stay on that level. Well, is it the Treasury of the state? Somebody has to keep a track record of that. So if you had a driver's license in 3 states, let's say I had driver's license in Ohio and in Florida, there's a bookkeeper somewhere. Why can't you just get those records and have them present the records?
Right here.
Appraisal, shouldn't they appraise the account? You talked about the account, right?
Well, you got to collect up the account, right? This is what we're talking about. Can you see that screen? Did I? No, I dumped it, didn't I? Damn it. Okay, this is vital records. This is what happens at birth.
Yeah, I
The
see
current
that.
birth registration process for a state vital records jurisdiction.
Yep.
That's all it is. That is all it is, folks. And what it is you got the state health department, which is the Health and Human Services. That's this box right here. This is where it all stems from. And they
Correct.
have every record, whether it's a local registrar, the state Medicaid, the DMV, the voter registration, vital records office, NCHS, NAFTAS, everything. It's all collected here. Okay? State Health Department. That's the Health and Human Services, a state recovery program. That's who's going to collect up all these titles. Okay? You're going to give them a directive to collect up all the titles according to their vital statistics jurisdiction for this name and number. Okay?
Awesome. So let's stay there a second. So that's the basics. How would you kind of dive deeper in there to get into the estate recovery program to formulate a directive and instruct them to do your biddings?
I wouldn't. I'd use this right here. Listen, Health and Human Services is the estate recovery program manager for every state. And as far as I know, everything is supposed to be set payable on death. In other words, you're not supposed to be attacking my estate until I'm dead. And there is, in fact, a decedent.
Okay.
There is no decedent here.
So let's use my mom, for example. She passed 5 years ago, so she's deceased. We can go claim that estate, and we're doing it at the state level where she was birthed, right?
Correct.
Okay.
And they'll have all records. And all you're going to have them do is collect them up so that you can transfer them appropriately out. In other words, you're going to transfer them out of the state. Then you're going to transfer them out of the United States. Well, where do you transfer them to? Once you transfer them out of the United States, you transfer them into your private trust account. Where is that?
Offshore somewhere.
It should be. It should be.
Cook's Island, maybe. But so let's go back to here. So you're going to go get a probate case open in equity or conclusive or common law?
Oh yeah, I would do it. Yeah, I would do it equity. Everything I would do equity because I'm not supposed to be in the system. But as a matter of equity, I have to come forth with a remedy. And in that, I've got to use their state statutes and stuff to my best ability. If they become unusable and it's an impossibility, then I have to be able to create a possibility or create that remedy.
Right. So we're going to come in and you're going to come in and open a probate case for the deceased mother. And that way you can have the judge order the SSA, Department of Health and Human Services, gather up all the records. And then that's what we're looking to do in chambers.
Correct. And so then we have 49 CFR 24.106 as expenses incidental to transfer title to the agency. Now, the agency is that Health and Human Services that I was telling about. Okay.
Correct.
So we're going to take that title, that driver's license ID, and say, hey, I use this to get all these documentations, medical papers, educational papers, employment papers, tax papers, insurance papers, I need to send that back to the Department of Health and Human Services under a state recovery and say, hey, I need all of these records gathered up at the state level, and I need them transferred, expenses incidental to transfer of title to the United States. This is 42 U.S. Code 4653, where we were indoctrinated to believe that we were supposed to use that Social Security card along with birth certificate to get that ID. Okay? That expense is incidental to transfer of title to the United States is so that the United States can settle their debt obligation and make all parties whole. Once that debt obligation is made whole and is done and all parties are made whole, the expenses incidental to transfer of title to the Postal Service is a offshore account.
All right. So let me summarize for what he's doing here, guys. So he first talked about Title 49, which is transportation, which is the driver's license. Then he went to Title 42, which is Health and Human Services, which is the Social Security, which is also the birth certificate registration at the vital records. And then now he's talking about Title 39, which is the Postal Service, which would be probably falling under the universal postal union.
Correct. And you're going to have what you're going to do. I've already got mine set up, and it is a merchant account at the international level. It's an international merchant account under the enterprise payment system.
You did that on the UPS. You did it on the United States Postal Service, though, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Then now that's your trust account, and that's just a pass through, because you're still going to have a local account for the person to operate locally. So it's going to be the enterprise payment system is the international account showing that you are a valid merchant. Okay, you're not a trading. Nobody's going to be trading with an enemy. Okay, this has to do with the international treaties. Now you place yourself in a capacity to be equal station with the United States.
Just another a private trust here in the United States.
Correct. And then you're going to have a Postal One master trust account that should be tied directly to the general ledger for that person. It is still their person. If you're still using that same name, this is you asked about the name change. Then you're not talking about just changing the name. What you're doing in those situations is you're creating a whole new person. Okay? So as the person is designed at birth, if you use it throughout your life, that's fine. You can do that. Just understand it's an imperfect usufruct and it's their property. So all you got to do is hold them to their liabilities and make sure that, hey, I'm qualified to do this with your person, correct? I can open this account and attach it to the general ledger. That way, when these third-party debt collectors come along and try to collect against you, you can place a master trust error report and say, hey, is this a valid debt? And the Postal Service will check it out. Because if it doesn't match up with the general ledger, they're going to tell them to kick rocks.
So is the taxpayer attached to the general ledger as well? Or is
Yes, that's why I say keep that person. Go ahead and keep using it. Well, you can also operate outside of it by creating another person. You're not limited to one person. Matter of fact, the person that went to school in first grade is a different person than the person that went to school in second grade, third grade, fourth grade, all the way up. It is also a different person than the one that got a job at McDonald's. It's also a different person than the one that got a job down at the local production line. It's also a different person than the one that signed that insurance application or filed that document in court. They're all different persons. They're all enumerated different.
Every time it's put on a different piece of paper, it's a new record.
Yep.
Okay. So hypothetically, if you and I are in our 50s and we've got millions and millions and millions of dollars in that taxpayer account, why not just use the IRS documents to transfer credits to your estate and do it that way? In addition to many other methods, maybe as like a temporary solution.
Absolutely. See, the estate, again, folks, understand, it's not necessarily your estate. You are the executor of a decedent estate, and that means somebody must have passed things on when they died to you. This is inheritance, and nobody can deny the transfer of property as long as it's done lawfully.
And so what's the lawful way to transfer the property?
Well, it certainly isn't supposed to belong in the hands of a custodian if the beneficiary is of age and majority.
All right. So speaking of custodian, we briefly talked about Gavin doing the proxy and the security intermediaries by taking the certificate, a birth certificate, endorse the front, endorse the back, and then do an assignment, transfer property from, let's say, one of your held LLCs as the proxy, and then deliver to the United States Treasury. Do you understand what I'm talking about there?
Yeah, you're talking about registering the birth certificate in the United States where it needs to be registered.
But we've never done that.
Exactly. And that's the surrender. You're going to take it from the state and surrender it to the United States. What's surrender? What is it? What is it you do when you render something? You make it. What happens when you surrender it? Greetings, Ross. How you doing?
Good, good, good. I just got in here, come in a little late. Who would be that one that makes it to the age of majority? Would it possibly be the one with the right teachings to protect the family farm?
Right, the living soul that's going to have a good educational background and knows that the accreditation is based upon merit. Now, merit is etymologically it means spiritual freedom. So when you're going through high school, just like your mom and dad did, because they didn't have their mom and dad teaching them spiritually, you're not getting that spiritual education. So the accreditation isn't based on any merits. That's why I say when you walk to high school and you turn around and you give up the merits of your education, there aren't any merits. So you didn't give up any merits, but you do turn around and fuck off the accreditation and turn around and become a public officer or a public person of some sort instead of remaining private.
But how would that one that becomes the age of a majority get in control of broadcasting, which would be the one that plants the seeds in the garden of prosperity and abundance to teach others to protect the farm, the family?
Well, yeah, that's like me. It doesn't happen until you're later on in years. And that's why I say it's important that we start picking this up and learn that we truly are the teachers. We're supposed to be teaching our children. We're supposed to be their doctor, okay, as that term is used. And we failed that. Set thine house in order. Gentlemen, you failed. You thought it was convenient to let your woman go out in the workplace with you.
You gave them a license to represent the family farm, and they got a hold of a little power and got a little shine in the light and got a voice in that broadcast of the planting of that seed that they should have never had before.
Right. Missionaries to the occupied force. Let me pull this up. This is Liber Code. And this is article, I think it's 53 or 54. We're going to take a look at here. Because that's what we're talking about. Joshua Junio is absolutely correct there.
But you know what I think else is interesting is that SS-16 is a religious order.
So we look at and Josh Junio says missionaries to the occupied force. And the occupied force is a military force, and it says the enemy's chaplains, officers of the medical staff, apothecaries, hospital nurses, and servants, if they fall into the hands of the American army, are not prisoners of war, unless the commander has reason to retain them. In this latter case, or if at their own desire, they are allowed to remain with their captured companions, they are treated as prisoners of war and may be exchanged if the commander sees fit. Now, I know a lot of people may not see this in today's society, but that's exactly what we have on this American soil in a program of economic warfare, where you're assumed to be trading with the enemy. That's a presumption laid by the legal fiction to protect their commercial entities. Okay?
And I think the reason they're doing that and what educated them to protect those entities is that Associates of Science degree that is upon a completion of a 2-year program of scientific and technical disciplines.
Yeah, and I think people need
the battle of the forms.
Yeah, and I think people need to get involved with this stuff more and more. The more we educate ourselves, the more we're able to start educating our children, and the more we're able to start educating our children, the more we will educate our children. I think it's imperative we understand that title or that thing about my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge, and that if you don't profess the counsel of God, then He's going to deny your children as well. This is the public education firsthand. Firsthand.
Well, wouldn't that head teacher, one of the first things would be to teach diplomatic measures so we don't have to go to war to seek the correction of those measures?
Absolutely. Let's look it up.
So you showed Article 53, where if we chose to remain prisoners, well, then going back to what you're just talking about, by surrendering the birth certificate and assign it to the United States, isn't that you're no longer agreeing to stay there, so that the United States can't sell you in war?
Well, it's not a matter of them selling you or anything. It's a matter of the documents you're signing and you not understanding what those documents are. So what it is United States claims a obligation and other security to all debt instruments. That's their property. It's their property. They get to sell it. If you nix them from selling it, you're considered a trading, an enemy. If you grant them the ability to sell it, but let them know you want your interest in it, they'll be glad to give you your interest, release you of any liabilities, and then play their little monopoly game.
Awesome. And then before you go to the next thing, how would you summarize the best way to do that?
Again, learning diplomacy.
I was going to say, because I don't think that would be too diplomatic.
Well, yeah, let's take a look at diplomacy as it relates to etymology. What is the origin of the term diplomacy? What does it really mean by intent? So let's take a look.
You, me, and the devil make three.
The science, I know Russ loves this one, the science as a noun, the science of formal intercourse between nations through authorized agents, or, as it continues on, the art of negotiating and drafting treaties. Isn't this a system of negotiable instruments? Isn't this system one of the most imperative systems that we should be teaching our children? If they're going to be negotiating and drafting things, then shouldn't they know what it means? But that's the last thing anybody ever teaches them.
It's insane. Only if they knew that they were representatives of the family and they've been given special privileges to go out and represent.
Yeah, and look
you know
at
what I mean?
Well, look at this.
And they've proven themselves that they can't be trusted.
Right, and it says more loosely. And then it goes on. It says transactions and management of international business in general. So again, like I said, when we graduate high school, we've been given international accreditation, but we don't comprehend it, and instead we turn around and get a state ID or driver's license, nixing the international forum and enslaving ourselves into the local community. That's as simple as I can put it, guys. And I hope that helped you out, Dean. And Dean, I'll let you know, I am willing to do these streams anytime you want.
Yeah, I think it helps because you talked about that earlier. I think it's called the plenipotentiary diplomat or something like that.
Yes.
Those are the guys that signed the peace treaties, what, Ben Franklin and John Adams or whatnot?
Because they were multi-talented.
Well, based on your definition there.
That is the asset.
Yeah, based on the definition you showed there that they were representing agents of the United States.
Yeah, and not only that, but it was several of them, and not a one of them had full powers. They could only exert those full powers of a nation together. There's no way an individual, one of us, will be able to grow a nation without combining and getting together with other people. Though it does extend from a family, that family has to be an associative family and not a racial family. This is the difference. When I think of diversity, I'm not talking about race or ancestry.
We've all been divided by the teachings, and
Right.
when they shouldn't have been given the a credit to teach.
Correct. Correct.
But I believe the lost tribe of Israel, and I believe Eastern Kentucky is the Garden of Eden. I believe, there ain't no mountain too high, no valley too low. And united we stand, divided we fall. There ain't nothing like the old Kentucky home. And is it those principles and values that was stolen in the 80s? I'm just asking. I'm only asking a question because there's a burning desire in my soul that tells me I'm connected here some kind of way.
Yeah,
So,
and that's the thing I've never let go of. There's always been that internal sense that I've never let go, and people are astounded. I used to be a pretty nasty guy when it comes to certain things, but that's because of the way I grew up and being bullied quite a bit and everything, and through foster care and this and that, and it got me to a point where I no longer even dealt with the inner emotional feelings of other people's actions, and I became very apathetic. And this is one of the aspects I think is important in life, that we learn how to be apathetic and learn how to put things aside so we don't get so emotionally caught up in them that we do end up becoming active in them. BLM and protesting and things like that. I would never go out and protest, no matter how much I think Black Lives Matter. There's better ways to be diplomatic about it. Our forefathers never did that kind of shit. And in fact, even when it comes to our forefathers and that Tea Party, I have to think maybe they were kind of dull, stupid, ignorant. Because if it was my product and I was pissed because somebody was going to tax me on it, and I decided I didn't want to pay the fucking tax and decided to protest it, I just wouldn't pay the fucking tax. I wouldn't not pay the tax and dump the product. I'd keep the product and sell it. The dummies dumped it. Why don't people see this in history? How am I the only one that talks about this? That wasn't such a great idea. But yet here we are still celebrating centuries later the fact that they dumped tea in the harbor. Ooh, great idea. Yeah, that was a great protest. No, it was a dumb protest. If you're gonna
egotistic protest.
Yeah, if you're gonna protest, just don't do it. Just don't get involved in the stupidity. That's all it is. So anyway, that brings us to the end. Unless you got more, Dean.
No, this has been fantastic. I got a little notes. I'm going to kind of look more into the reclaiming of my mother's estate and figure out how to go about doing it that way.
Yeah, just if she's already passed on, then just go to the death certificate and say, hey, there's certain property that was supposed to be transferred, and under my comprehension, there was certain legal property that wasn't transferred, and I need to make sure that I receive that property, which is her credits. We need to, that's through Health and Human Services, a state recovery program. When they went through and did that death certificate, the state made sure they got paid. Now you need to check with them, see if there's any credits left for the inheritance or heir to make a claim. Because again, the state holds property in abeyance for the rightful heir when they come forth to make a valid claim. If you haven't made that valid claim, they still have it.
So
if in form of credits. So
the birth is Michigan, the death is Florida. You have to open a probate first, or you contact HHS in the state of birth?
Yeah, I would contact them both. HHS in the state of birth and open a probate court in that state of birth, letting them know you contacted Health and Human Services, and let Health and Human Services know you're opening a probate, and that they will all need to work together.
Can you open a probate not even being 2,000 miles away?
Absolutely.
Okay. Gotcha. Thank you.
So you bouncing out?
Yep, we're out. I gotta run to the store. We've been an hour and a half, and I don't like to make these kind of educational sessions too long. People get bored, and lose track and get lose interest and stuff. So
It's always a pleasure to chop it up with you, Wiz. Oh,
Yeah,
and like I
thanks
always
for your
do,
time.
man, be the change you wish to see, folks. And remember, you, me, and the devil make three. We all have a responsibility to make sure all our children live out God's legacy. Much love and many blessings.
Amen. Have a great afternoon.
you bet. And Dean, anytime you want to come back and do another video, just let me know. Be glad to do it. And you guys know me. I love you, but I don't give a rat's ass whether you love me back or not. That's to say, I don't care if you hate me. I don't care if you don't respect me. That part is on you. So may God bless you and have a good day. We'll see you next time. And hit that like, share, and subscribe.